The January transfer window is looming, and although there aren't a huge amount of targets for incomings at Chelsea at the moment yet, there are some decidedly pointed outgoings to talk about, and Maresca has not minced his words. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the StaMford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And like I said, man, today that means we're talking about potential outgoings. The results recently have been poor. The loss against Leeds was really bad. Smacks of the double barrel loss we got to Ipswich last season. And yes, Bournemouth are a good team, and we did get a point out of it, but it's not good enough, is it? So we've got three players to talk about today. We're going to talk about Tosin Adarabioyo, Axel Disasi, and Facundo Buonanotte. But guys, before we get into it, if you're enjoying the content and would like to see more, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. So we'll start with Tosin Adarabioyo. This is more off the back of the Leeds game than it is the Bournemouth game, but at the end of the day, in the interview afterwards, Maresca did not mince his words about the situation, right? So I personally have had problems with Maresca throwing players under the bus for bad performances, but in this respect, I kind of completely agreed with him in terms of when he was kind of talking about Tosin. So the one thing I did really appreciate that he said is whenever we lose a game, people are always very quick to point to inexperience, right? Inexperience is the issue. But when we win games against Barcelona and when we get that excellent draw against Arsenal, no one's talking about the inexperience then, are they? Because we're all just, wrapped up in the win. So we only point to the inexperience when we get losses. That's a reasonably fair point from Maresca. And he actually said, which I found really interesting, his biggest regret in this game was not playing Josh Achiampong, because obviously Josh Achiampong, really young player, and he'd said quite categorically he decided to go with Trevor Chalobah, Tosin Adarabioyo and Benoit Badiashile because he was expecting lots of long balls and wanted the physicality. Okay, fair enough. And as far as the experience thing goes, he actually said, he was like, who did we have on the pitch? Tosin Adarabioyo. Did he play well? No, he didn't. And Tosin Adarabioyo was not even on the bench for the Bournemouth game, man. Not even on the bench for the Bournemouth game. So make of that what you will. I do actually, I think there's some fair points in there, man, to be honest. It's a difficult one because I've been quite critical of Maresca sometimes for how he deals with these post-match presses and throwing players under the bus and stuff. But at the end of the day, that's as far as I can see, that's a really reasonable point. All of us after that game were like, why didn't Josh Achiampong play? That seemed like a really good game for Josh Achiampong. And obviously Tosin was at fault for two of those goals as well. So Maresca and the rest of us actually seem to think that less experience in that game might have seen us perform even better because it was our most experienced player that ultimately cost us the goals and the game. So as of yet, there are no particular rumours about who might be in for Tosin, but at the end of the day, you got to think there's going to be someone interested in him. Although he's made a couple of high-profile mistakes and hasn't played particularly well for us recently, there are definitely going to be clubs out there lower in the Premier League that are going to look at Tosin Adarabioyo and be like, oh, I'll have a bit of that in my team. So we got Tosin Adarabioyo on a free from Fulham. And at the end of the day, that's something that always comes back to me in particular. I've mentioned it a few times. It's like when we get annoyed by Tosin or whatever, we're not talking about a Moises Caicedo or an Enzo Fernandez who we spent 100 million on. We're talking about a Tosin Adarabioyo who we got on a free from Fulham. Tosin was never meant to play this amount of games. He was never meant to come into the squad and be such an important figure. Ultimately, if Levi Colwill hadn't been injured, if we hadn't been dealing with Wesley Fofana's injury for so long, Tosin Adarabioyo would have got nowhere near the amount of game time that he's getting now. And like I say, man, that just kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Because when you get a Tosin on a free from Fulham, you're like, he'll be a good squad player. He'll be able to come in for the odd game. But ultimately, he's not been able to cope with the pressure of being, a really important part of this, ultimately title-winning machine. And we're not a title-winning machine yet, but that's what we want to be. And clearly, Tosin just isn't good enough for that. So he's got 2.5 years left on his contract. Because we got him on a free, anything we sell him for is going to be profit. So I imagine 20 mil, 15 to 20 mil would probably be enough. If someone comes in with 15, 20 mil for Tosin Adarabioyo, that will pay for the first year or two's amortised fee for pretty much any centre-back we look to replace him with. Most recently, we've been linked with Murillo from Nottingham Forest. I think that would be a fantastic buy. I really, really like him. This is all speculation, by the way, just from my part. But I could see Tosin going out in January because if we want to salvage our season, we need to have some more solid, better centre-back options, man. And, Tosin not even making the Bournemouth game, I think, was quite telling. And we'll just have to see what happens with him going forward. But ultimately, myself and I'm sure the rest of you, we'd just rather see Josh Achiampong there right now, wouldn't we? If there's a game like Benoit Badiashile, for instance, I'm still reasonably happy with as a squad player. I think he offers, he doesn't make loads of mistakes. He's a really good passer of the ball, like unbelievable passer of the ball from centre-back. And, I think if we're going to have that Passy Maguba middle centre-back role, then Benoit Badiashile can play that really well. And if we need someone to partner him in Cardiff game or Paphos in the Champions League, you know what I mean? These kind of lower profile games that we've got coming up, then I think Josh Achiampong should just be given the shot. So we'll move on from Tosin Adarabioyo and straight to Axel Disasi. And this is madness, man. This is an absolute madness. Man has literally not played for like 4 months, a professional game. He's only trained with the first team once and he's got no fewer than 6 clubs interested in him, man. 6 clubs interested in him. So Axel Disasi has been in the bomb squad for a long time. And do you know what? Like, a lot of people were calling for, why don't we bring Axel Disasi back and this and that and the other? I don't think that would have been that much better than Tosin Adarabioyo. I think Tosin is ultimately a better player than Axel Disasi, but in recent times, do you know what I mean, over the last few games, Tosin is getting up there in terms of errors made, right? And that was the thing about Disasi. He was calamitous. He made lots of errors. He got sent off. He scored own goals. And as much as we needed him to be, he wasn't a solid enough defender or good enough with the ball at his feet. So at the end of the day, you'd rather have Josh Achiampong over either Tosin or Disasi, wouldn't you? So I don't think not bringing Disasi back was a bad idea. I do think, ultimately keeping the squad smaller and not having him in the squad ultimately will have benefited us. But it's really interesting that so many clubs are in for him, right? So I've got a little list here. So as of today, Axel Disasi has been linked with Borussia Dortmund, Galatasaray, Juventus, West Ham, Newcastle and Lyon. And it's a really interesting mix as well because only a few of these clubs are looking to buy him on a permanent. Lyon's situation in particular is quite nuanced. They are looking for kind of temporary cover because they've got injury worries and they've got a lot of players going off to AFCON, and that is going to see their defence kind of decimated in the very near future. The West Ham one is there, and that will make sense because they were linked with him back at the end of the summer. And this was another thing that quite annoyed me about Disasi, actually. He had offers on the table. At the end of the summer window, he had Bournemouth, Wolves and West Ham all with offers on the table for him to go and play there, and he said no because he wanted to go back to Europe. He wanted to go back to Monaco in particular. We couldn't send him back to Monaco because they didn't want to buy him. They only wanted to loan him, and we'd used all of our loan spots. So I don't have a huge amount of sympathy for Disasi being in the bomb squad because he had opportunities to go and play football elsewhere and he turned them down. And at the end of the day, although he turned down that move to West Ham back then, he's not played professional football for the last 4 months. Do you know what I mean? So maybe that's changed his mindset a little bit. The Newcastle one, I think, is a bit fanciful. I think the thing is, anyone looking at Disasi is not going to be looking at paying a huge amount for him. We are going to probably lose money on Disasi. If we, again, kind of like I said about Tosin, if we make 15 to 20 mil just to get him off the books and out of the club, I think that's about as much as we can hope for. Newcastle, I'm not sure, man. I'm not sure. That seems like a strange one. He did do pretty well on Aston Villa when he went there on loan at the end of the day. The ones I can't really speak to are Juventus, Dortmund and Galatasaray. Galatasaray were linked with him a little while ago. I did a video about that, and that makes sense if that one's continuing. I can see him doing reasonably well over there. Juve, I don't know what it is about you. Juve just never like paying for people, do they? That's the thing. So maybe a cheap Axel Disasi seems attractive to them. And Borussia Dortmund just need cover for their centre-back spots, do you know what I mean? So I do find it quite interesting that so many clubs are interested in Axel Disasi, even though he hasn't played football, but I guess that weirdly means he's like fresh and he hasn't made any mistakes in recent memory, so, everyone's romanticising or kind of predicting how good Disasi could be for their club. And obviously the last time he was playing for Chelsea, we obviously weren't happy with him because he stopped playing, and obviously we ended up loaning him to Aston Villa, didn't we? And that was a bit of a shock at the time. It wasn't like building up, it was a bit like, oh, Axel Disasi's going to Aston Villa on loan, and that was just kind of the end of that story. And yeah, don't ever expect him to see him in a Chelsea shirt again. I think we were all expecting January rumours to start circulating. As soon as he didn't get sold in the summer, it was like, right, okay, he's probably going to get sold in January. He's changed his physique, he's slimmed down a little bit. I'm not sure if that's made him, focus on his technicality a little bit more. And obviously none of us have seen him play football for the last 4 months. So like I say, maybe it's all fanciful romanticism from the clubs that are in for him. But at the end of the day, if one of them puts money up, absolutely wicked. I imagine the clubs like Juventus alongside Lyon probably just want loans. which obviously is going to be tricky because we have a finite amount of international loans. So I would imagine the only way Disasi is going to be able to go out is if someone comes in and slaps some money on the table. But guys, let me know what you think about Uncle Tosin Adarabioyo and Axel Disasi. Should we move them on right now? Could it help us salvage our season if we could sell both of those and bring in one slightly more solid centre-back, like a Murillo, for instance, or something like that? Would that be really good for our season? Personally, I'd be for it. I think we need less centre-backs. Do you know what I mean? I think one of the problems we've got is having so many centre-backs. Like a couple of weeks ago, before Trevor Chalobah and Wesley Fofana had emerged as the most consistent pairing we'd have, we had 8 different centre-back pairings over the first 16 games of the Premier League, man. Do you know what I mean? So it's nuts. Too many. Well, too many. And part of the reason for that is because we've got so many. Do you know what I mean? So Maresca is obviously without Levi Carwell. He's trying to find the right balance, and obviously people are injured and this and that and the other. But ultimately, the less centre backs we have, the more consistent we are forced to be, because there's only so many pairings we can go for. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think about those two. I'm not gonna lie to you, at this point, I'd be happy to see both of them go. Axel Disasi was just a failed buy, and it never worked out. Tosin Adarabioyo, he's been bad recently, but I always come back to it. Like I said, man, at the end of the day, for me, it's like we got him on a free from Fulham. I don't know what we expected, to be completely honest. So that will take us to our last story of the day, and it is about Facundo Buonanotte, and this one's quite interesting. So Facundo Buonanotte was an unusual purchase. Well, I say purchase, loan, because we've loaned him from Brighton. We loaned Facundo Buonanotte in and around all of the noise about Fermin Lopez and Xavi Simons, who obviously ended up going to Tottenham, and we needed a backup centre attacker, didn't we? That was kind of the whole thing. Now, Facundo Buonanotte, I think, has played like 5 games, and he's not really, he scored 1 or 2 goals against lower tier opposition, do you know what I mean? But he's not fighting for game time, and we're not going to put stock into developing him because he's on loan. And I'm pretty sure if we wanted to buy him, Brighton would be like, yeah, that's 50 mil. Do you know what I mean? And obviously, we're just not going to pay that sort of money. He doesn't really seem like he's good enough. It felt like he was just a body. Do you know what I mean? We just kind of got him in because we needed a body to be able to play that centre attacking role. And it's unusual for Chelsea to loan players in this manner anyway. So it always felt a little bit strange. It always felt a little bit temporary. And it turns out it might even be more temporary than we initially thought, because Brighton, although having a reasonably good season at the moment, so Brighton currently sit in 10th position on 22 points. I'm recording this video before the West Ham game starts, so that might change at the end of the day. If they beat West Ham today, they'll go into like 5th. Do you know what I mean? So they although they are in 10th place at the moment, this 1 or 2 wins, as where we are in the Premier League right now, could see them jump right into fighting for European places alongside Everton and Crystal Palace. I thought last season was nuts, by the way. This season is turning out to be even more nuts. But they've had an injury to one of their attackers. They've had a few mixed results recently, and they are considering recalling Facundo Buonanotte in January. And that kind of makes sense, right? Because if they think, we need attacking reinforcements in January, we're not playing Buonanotte, they need an attacker. I don't think any of us in the Chelsea fan base would be particularly disappointed if they recalled Facundo Buonanotte, would we, to be completely honest. I'd rather see Reggie Walsh get opportunities. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, like, yes, I know he's really, really young or whatever, but at the end of the day, like, Facundo Buonanotte is barely playing anyway, and whenever he does, it's against lower tier opposition at the end of the day. So, and also we know Esteban Willian can play there, Cole Palmer's coming back now, Enzo Fernandez has been doing a really good job there, João Pedro plays there quite a lot. We've got enough centre attackers in the squad now, especially with Cole Palmer coming back, to not need to worry about sending Facundo Buonanotte back, I don't think, personally. So guys, let me know what you think about this one as well. Facundo Buonanotte, would you be sad to see him go? Do you think that it's worth putting the time into him to develop him, to then maybe buy him for what would probably be an outrageous price from Brighton? Because when do Brighton ever sell at a reasonable price? Do you know what I mean? We've not been fleeced. We've actually done really well out of Brighton. Do you know what I mean? Cucurella, João Pedro, yes and no, but at the end of the day, all of the players we buy from Brighton are really expensive. Even though Facundo Buonanotte is not playing really well, they'll just say he's got loads of potential, so it's 50 mil. Do you know what I mean? So personally, I don't see Facundo Buonanotte being recalled to Brighton as a bad thing. I think it actually could be a good thing. If it just means that we're put in a position, like I say, where, okay, we've got Cole Palmer back now, we've got João Pedro, maybe Esteban Willian can get a little bit more time in that slot. As far as wingers go, that could also see people like Tyreek George getting more time on the wing if Esteban Willian is playing more in the centre. We've got players, and there's ways to mix fix it around, do you know what I mean, that I don't think will hamstring our squad going forward. So that's it, guys. The clear out might well be on. It's going to be really interesting. We need to sell, man. The thing is, if we want to buy, we need to sell 100%. I think a lot of people would like to see us go in for a centre-back in January. I think that Maresca has probably been shouting that since the start of the season. Yes, okay, right now, Trev and Wesley Fofana look like our number one centre-back pairing, but there's still injuries, there's still issues. We've got to manage Fofana's minutes. But Buddy Shield's only just kind of coming back. Josh Champong's still really young. For me, I want someone like a Rudiger. Do you know what I mean? Maybe not him because his wages would be crazy. But at the same time, someone like a Tosin, but with actual experience. Do you know what I mean? With like winning experience at a top club rather than, okay, he did okay at Fulham at the end of the day. I think we need a bit of experience in the squad. I think also we might have to look at the striker situation, man. We really might have to look at the striker situation. I still haven't heard how long Liam Delap's expected to be out for based on that shoulder injury yet. But Mark Gue isn't good enough to have that a much pressure put on him, and João Pedro just keeps going missing in games at the moment. So unless we're going to defer back to putting all of this pressure on Cole Palmer to score goals and putting pressure on Pedro Neto and Esteval Willian to score goals, like, we're going to need to look at the striking option. Just someone who can get 5 to 10 goals over the second half of the season, because at the moment, João Pedro's got 4, Liam Delap's got 1, and he only managed that against a 10-man Barcelona. So yeah, the striker situation might need to be looked at. And in order to even have these conversations at all, we're going to need to sell people. And you would have thought Axel Disasi's at the top of that list. I mean, Raheem Sterling would probably be at the top of that list, but just the money, man. The money's so crazy that I still don't really expect that to be an easy one to get rid of. Tosin Adarabioyo seems like an easy way to make a quick buck, and if we free up some wages with sending Facundo Buonanotte back, that gives us a little bit more wiggle room. So we'll have to see what happens, but that feels like how it could go to me at the moment. Nice one, guys. I'm going to wrap the video up there. I hope you all have an absolutely wicked day. I'll catch up with you very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.